What is up, you paladins? Today I'm gonna clear up all your doubts about Mod 19. Am I funny yet? Yeah, so Paladin healing is being changed in Mod 19, just the same as all the other types of healing. And it's time that we talk about how it's changing and what is changing. And if you watched my cleric video, some of this will sound familiar, but it is what it is. Also, just to do a quick disclaimer, make this clear that this video was recorded in a beta version of Mod 19. That means that some things could have been adjusted or changed slightly by the time that you watch this video. Because right now, none of you know about this and I'm not allowed to show you this video. But by the time you're watching this, I'll be allowed to show you this video and that's why you'll be seeing it. Got all that? Okay. So yeah, just double check, make sure the things that I'm telling you are accurate. I'll try my best to make a little note either in the description or in a pinned comment if something has changed. So yeah, let's talk about paladins and the paladouts. So you open up your power screen where your powers are located, of course, and there should be one thing that jumps out at you. And that would be the little pair of wings right there. That looks a little different, right? Everything else looks pretty much the same. But there are some new mechanics that come along with the Mod 19 healing changes for Paladin. And we're going to talk about those first and then go through the rest of the powers that have been changed and feats and all that. Because I've got to do mechanics first or the other stuff's just not going to make sense, okay? Just bear with me here. So, your channel divinity power, you know, the thing that you do that restores your divinity, fills up the meter back up. Yeah, that. So, it has a couple different things that it can do now. It can mark somebody. Well, it activates either Aura of Divinity or Hand of Divinity. And you're probably like, well, what are those, Silver? Well, I'm gonna tell you. Don't you worry. I'm gonna tell you right now. So, Channel Divinity basically just has a couple of different settings, so to speak, that you can activate depending on how long you channel the power, basically. So, let's talk about Aura of Divinity. We all know paladins have auras and divinity. So, I mean, the name kind of makes sense. So basically, Aura of Divinity is a mark that you put on either yourself or somebody in your party, and it increases the effectiveness of your auras on whoever is marked. And it's not something that has a cooldown or anything like that. It's going to stay on the person that you have marked until either you mark somebody else or they move further than 100 feet away. So that's going to take care of pretty much most combat situations that you'll encounter. And you mark somebody simply by tapping tab or your divinity channeling button, whatever that is. And we can actually have a look-see at it because I can mark myself. There's like a fog in this map, so it's kind of blurry. But like its wings, see? They go flap flap. Unless I log out or change maps, that's going to be there for the rest of the video, so have fun staring at it. But yeah, like I said, just tap, 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 channel divinity, and mark people. I love that I can do this. This is going to be my new favorite way to annoy people. Moving on to Hand of Divinity. You take that big ol' divinity hand of yours and you just slap it across your marked target's face, and it heals them. And if you don't charge it all the way, it will do less healing, but also cost less divinity. So the cost and the power of the Hand of Divinity slap scales depending on how long you charge it. And you can charge it up to 2.5 seconds. It costs 200 divinity, and it heals for 1500 magnitude. And then, of course, being that you are a healing paladin, it has the Divine Barrier effect, which puts the shield on people. Okay, so you got all that. Paladin's version is actually more simple than Cleric's, so, you know. Here we go, moving on now. So, we're gonna go top to bottom, because that's just easiest. So, Cure Wounds. That at-will power that people didn't really use unless they were trying to proc the critical touch thingy feat. It did, no healing, but now it went from doing a 50 magnitude heal to 500 magnitude heal, so just added a little 0 at the end. And it costs a little bit more divinity. It went up from 10 to 30. So I don't know if that means that people are going to be picking the Cure Wounds feat, which has also actually been changed as well, and we will, get to that in a little bit. But it is nice that the at-will actually is probably going to be a little bit useful now. On to everybody's favorite pool of healing goodness, the opposite of being slapped in the face. Being slapped in the face with healing. Divine Touch. Divine Touch has had its divinity cost doubled. It's went up from 100 to 200, and its magnitude was increased by about 3 times. It went up from 350 magnitude to 1000 magnitude. So the shield duration actually kind of makes sense now with this, because you're doing a lot more healing, but you're not going to be able to do it as often just because the divinity cost is more. So having a shield duration last 20 seconds actually makes sense, because before you could just shield somebody every couple seconds, basically. And I mean, you still can do that, but it's allowing you to be more mindful of the duration of the shield, like to only apply it whenever it gets low or when you get divinity back and stuff. I don't know, maybe that's just me and my nonsense opinions, but the main thing that I want to talk about with this, other than that, is that it has a different mechanic, as I'm sure you've already read by now while I've been talking nonsense. The thing that doesn't really make much sense about this is that its magnitude will decrease as the number of targets increases. So if you're using it as a single target heal, the AoE heal, you use it as a single target heal, it will do the 1000 magnitude. But as soon as you add in your other party members into the mix, the heal will get less and less. It'll basically be kind of like split up among them. Now, I don't know how much the magnitude will decrease for each additional target. I don't know if it's going to be split evenly among all the targets, or if it's just like, I don't know, 200. Well, 200 magnitude less for each target would mean it's split up evenly in a full party. I don't know. I never said I was smart, guys, okay? It just seems a little bit counterintuitive to me. But I do think it's going to work. Paladin is probably the healer that I am most confident in going into Mod 19. I shouldn't say that because I haven't looked at Warlock yet. I guess we'll have to see. Anyways, let's just move on for now. So onto Divine Shelter. That's not Divine Shelter. There we go. Divine Shelter has had its magnitude increased just a little bit from 400 to 450, and its divinity cost also increased a little bit from 180 to 220. And other than that, it has not been changed. So it doesn't have the whole, for the more targets you have, the less healing it does thingy. Kind of gives people more of a reason to actually use Divine Shelter over Divine Touch, because it didn't make as much sense in most situations to use Divine Shelter because it was always more expensive for less healing. And I mean, it is still more expensive for less healing, but the magnitude's not going to decrease for additional targets. Okay, now Cleansing Touch has had its magnitude increase from 200 to 300, and its divinity cost reduced from 50 to 40. That is actually all of the changes to powers. None of the daily powers have changed. None of the class features have changed their base effects, but one thing that I do want to talk about is how the Aura of Divinity actually affects a couple of these class features. So, Aura of Life and Aura of Restoration both have additional effects if the person has Aura of Divinity on them, like if they are marked. I'm not sure if this is going to be just those two, because Aura of Divinity in itself is supposed to increase the effectiveness of your auras. Aura of Restoration, you get an additional 2% on that marked person, 2% more healing, I should specify, if they have that Aura of Divinity mark. And then Aura of Life increases the healing magnitude by 75 on the marked person, so that will give you a 100 magnitude bonus heal in total. So that is kind of interesting. I really like, probably one of my favorite changes is the fact that having a mechanic, the Aura of Divinity, actually makes your class features have more and different effects. I really like that. We gotta talk about feats a little bit. And firstly, let's talk about the one that I mentioned earlier with Cure Wounds. The feat itself is the same, but it had its magnitude increase, so Cure Wounds heals for an additional 150 magnitude whenever the target has a shield on them, instead of 50 magnitude. So you're getting an even more bonus heal if they are shielded, which brings up Cure Wounds' heal to a 650 magnitude heal for an at-will that only costs 30 divinity. But you can spend 450 on an encounter. Or sorry, spend 220 for a 450 magnitude heal in an encounter, when your at-will could be 650 for 30. Just a thought. But in order to have that, you need to sacrifice your critical touch, which I don't think anyone will ever do. However, just the at-will in itself, 500, is still more magnitude than the encounter that costs more, which, now that I'm thinking about it, seems kind of unbalanced. However, as far as I know, Cure Wounds does not give the Divine Barrier Shield, so maybe it's an interesting trade-off. So Prayer of Opportunity has been completely reworked, and I am kind of sad, but I kind of like the new one, sort of. So the old one, we all know, you would use your powers and then you would gain a little prayer, and then you press tab, and then your divinity would go poof, and you would get some back, right? That's how that worked. So now, whenever you use your divinity encounters, basically, you have a 20% chance to gain battle prayer, which reduces the divinity cost of Hand of Divinity to 0. And if you remember, Hand of Divinity is that mechanic that heals your marked target. So that would be something good to kind of put on the tank while you're using your other powers on someone else maybe, or maybe put that mark on one of your DPS, and then whenever you're healing the tank, you could just, press tab for a second, and then poof, your dude is healed, I don't know. This is kind of like a mix of first impressions and information videos, so don't blame me if my opinions are wrong, because they're opinions. And there's no such thing as a wrong opinion, unless it hurts someone. Anyways, got a little bit off track there. We need to talk about Battle Focus, and you're probably like, well, what's Battle Focus? It was called Divine Focus before. You would gain a stack of it whenever you channel Divinity, and once you got 10 stacks, your at-wills would start to restore Divinity. And that was pretty lame. Compared to Prayer of Opportunity, that was like, so useless. But now, whenever you deal damage to enemies, you get increased Divinity regeneration for 6 seconds. So as long as you're damaging enemies, you'll get more Divinity back. Isn't that nice? So believe it or not, that is all of the power changes to Paladin. So not nearly as many as Cleric had. Actually, it's only like 2 less, but it feels like 50 less, but So now I just want to talk about a couple of things that are kind of healing related, not specific to Paladin, and just some things that I found interesting that are coming in the new mod that might pertain to you. So there's some gear. Now, if you've watched my Cleric video, you will have already seen this part, so I don't blame you if you click off now, but I promise you that this version is probably going to be more entertaining than that version because I'm in a better mood today. So, we've got some weapon sets. I want to talk about these first because I don't think that they're very good. So we got 3 new weapon sets, okay? The Hellfire Engine set that comes from the campaign store, Legion Guard comes from treasure maps in Avernus, and then the Celestial set that comes from the new trial Zariel's Challenge. Got all that? Okay, good. So as far as the bonuses go, the Hellfire one just increases your stamina regen and movement speed, and then it refreshes when you kill stuff, so it's not really that great. I also want to point out that Hellfire and the Legion Guard set are both below the weapon damage and stats of the Lionheart set. So Lionheart is still better than those 2 sets. The only one that outplays that is the Celestial set. So now that we've got that out of the way, Legion Guard set bonus is kind of like the Stronghold set bonus, but stats instead of percent damage. So you can gain up to 5,000 power, combat advantage, defense, and critical avoidance, depending on how many people in your party are using the Legion's Guard weapon set. Now, the Celestial set is probably the best bonus of the 3, but I still feel like the Lionheart set is better. So the Celestial set bonus, you have to use your encounters or dailies 10 times in order to gain Divine Fury, and then it lasts for 30 seconds, and you gain 5% outgoing damage and 5% outgoing healing, and it can only stack up to 2 times. So you can only have a maximum of 10% outgoing damage and 10% outgoing healing, which is pretty standard. I don't think any weapon set has ever gone above 10% of anything, but I still don't feel like it's better than Lionheart because you have to do a lot more work in order to get the bonus, whereas Lionheart, you just have to have full stamina, I believe. Alright, so that being said, we now have some gear pieces to take a look at. The first one being Crown of the Pit Fiend. Now, this is not really anything specifically healing related, but it's interesting enough that I really want to mention it. First of all, look at the effect on this thing. It's Bunimus. Okay, but that's not the point. The point is, look at the bonus, Martyr's Might. When your health is below 25%, your power is increased by 7,500%. And you might be thinking, huh, that's a pretty big percent. And you would be absolutely right, sir, or madam, or ma'am, or miss. If you have 150,000 power, and you increase that by 7,500%, you're looking at about somewhere between 11 and 12 million power. The only sacrifice is that you have to be almost dead in order for that to activate. And I don't know if there's a cooldown or if it goes away as soon as your health is above 25% or if it has a duration or any of that. But it's really interesting, don't you think? Now, next, I just want to talk about 3 different pairs of boots. 2 of them have the exact same bonus, just different stats, and the other one has a slightly different and better bonus, in my opinion. So, the first 2 pairs of boots, Greaves of the Fallen Angel and Boots of the Herald, both of them, if you're really close to your enemy target, you get 5,000 bonus power. I mean, any bonus power is nice. And the third pair of boots, my favorite, I think, is as long as your health is greater than 85%, you gain 7,500 power. Which, as a healer, you should probably, most of the time, always have greater than 85% health. The only trade-off there is that the only stat on it is defense, and you don't get any offensive stats or anything like that. But with the 7,500 bonus power and the 6,000 power already on those boots, you gain 13,500 power just by putting them on, and that's a lot. Also, the last thing that I need to talk about today is something new that I really like the idea of, but I really don't like the execution of it. So in the past, I'm not sure if I said this in a video or not, but I suggested having equip bonuses on gear that were different depending on which role you were playing, or at least have ones that are more geared towards tanks or healers, and there is something like that in Mod 19. There are a couple of chest pieces that have bonuses that only activate whenever you heal somebody. The problem, I mean, that's a great idea, I love that, but the problem is that the bonuses are pretty bad, in my opinion. Both of them have the same bonus, and basically you heal people and your critical strike goes up and your defense goes down by 1,000, and it stacks 5 times, so that's not that great, but yeah. Anyways, that is actually everything that I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and thank you very much for watching or listening or whatever. Just, if you could just hit that little button, it's below the video. If you scroll down a little bit, if you're on a PC, there's a button about an inch below the video to the right a little bit, and it's red. Probably, and it says subscribe on it. So if you click that button, it will turn gray, and that will give you a really great feeling of self-accomplishment, and you should do that. Okay, thanks. I hope you found this video informative and helpful and beautiful all at the same time. Okay, bye.